The first words my husband spoke after waking from a coma were not my name. He looked straight through me, smiled weakly, and whispered, "Emma, did the twins make it to school?" The room fell silent. I squeezed his hand so tightly my fingers hurt. "My name is Claire," I said, forcing a smile. "There are no twins." His face slowly twisted into confusion. "What are you talking about?" He looked around the hospital room as if he had walked into the wrong life. Then he turned back to me, frightened. "Where's my wife?" I was sitting less than 2 feet away. That was the moment I realized surviving the accident wasn't going to be the hardest part, because the man lying in that hospital bed remembered a family that didn't exist. Or so I believed. And before the week was over, I would discover something even worse. Someone else believed they were his family too. Until 3 days earlier, our life had been painfully ordinary. My husband, Daniel, was 38. He was the kind of man who fixed broken chairs instead of buying new ones. He never forgot birthdays. He always folded grocery bags neatly before putting them away. Every Sunday morning he made pancakes, even when neither of us wanted breakfast. He claimed routines kept people together. I used to laugh whenever he said it. Now I'd give anything to hear him repeat those words. We had been married for 11 years, no children. Not because we didn't want them. Life simply kept getting in the way. A failed pregnancy, then my mother's illness, then his father's business collapsing. Somewhere along the road, we stopped talking about babies and started talking about mortgages instead. It wasn't the marriage either of us had imagined, but it was ours. Or at least I thought it was. The accident happened on a rainy Tuesday. Daniel had called me only 15 minutes before. "I'm leaving work," he said. "You need anything? Just come home. I'll be there in 20. He never arrived. A truck had crossed the center line. The police later said no one could have avoided it. Daniel's car spun twice before slamming into the guardrail. The truck driver escaped with minor injuries. Daniel wasn't expected to survive the night. For 48 hours, I barely slept. I memorized the rhythm of the heart monitor. The smell of disinfectant followed me everywhere. Every nurse learned my name. Every doctor avoided making promises. Then, on the 3rd morning, he opened his eyes. For one impossible second, I thought everything would be okay. Then he asked about Emma and the twins. Who were Emma and the twins? The doctors explained that severe memory disturbances sometimes happened after traumatic brain injuries. "Give him time," one neurologist told me. "His memories may return gradually." But Daniel wasn't simply confused. He was certain. He insisted he had 2 children. He described them perfectly. "Aiden hates broccoli. Lily sleeps with a stuffed fox. They're 7. He answered without hesitation. He even smiled while describing them. The smile disappeared the moment he looked at me. "I'm sorry," he whispered politely. "I don't know who you are." It felt worse than hearing he might die. Death would have taken him away once. This was stealing him over and over again. The hospital psychologist encouraged me not to argue. Correcting him aggressively can increase stress. So I nodded, pretended to understand, pretended my heart wasn't breaking every time he apologized for forgetting me. Friends came to visit. Daniel recognized none of them. His younger sister Megan cried in the hallway after he introduced himself as though they had never met. His best friend Ryan tried joking. "Guess you finally found a way to avoid paying me back." Daniel stared blankly. "I'm sorry." Ryan stopped smiling. No one knew what to say anymore. That evening, while Daniel slept, I walked into the hospital cafeteria with Megan. She stirred her untouched coffee. "Claire." "What?" "Did Daniel ever—" She hesitated. "Ever what?" "Mention another woman?" The question hit harder than I expected. "No." She looked away. "I only asked because—" Because what? He seems so sure. I wanted to be angry. Instead, I felt something colder. Doubt. Not because I believed Daniel had cheated. Because certainty like his couldn't simply appear out of nowhere. Could it? That night, I barely slept. I replayed 11 years of marriage. Business trips, late meetings, phone calls he took outside, weekends he claimed to spend helping clients. Had I ignored something? Or was grief making me suspicious? The next morning, Daniel became agitated. I need my phone. It's at home. I have to call Emma. His breathing grew faster. She'll think I'm dead. The nurse asked him to calm down. Instead, he tried getting out of bed despite fresh stitches. I have to tell her I'm alive. It took 2 nurses to stop him. Watching him panic over another woman felt like someone pressing glass into my chest.
Yet another question appeared. If Emma wasn't real, why was his fear real?
Later that afternoon, the neurologist suggested bringing familiar objects from home. Photographs often help reconnect memory. So I drove back to our house alone. Everything looked untouched. His slippers near the door, his coffee mug beside the sink, his reading glasses on the nightstand. Evidence of an ordinary life. I gathered photo albums, vacation pictures, wedding photographs, holiday cards. Then I opened the drawer of his bedside table, looking for an old anniversary album. Instead, I found a key. Small, silver, no label. I had never seen it before. Daniel hated keeping unnecessary things. Every key in our house had a purpose. This one belonged nowhere. I searched the drawer again. Nothing. Just the key. I slipped it into my pocket. When I returned to the hospital, Daniel examined every photograph. Our wedding? Nothing. Our honeymoon in Italy? Nothing. Christmas with both families? Nothing. He looked almost embarrassed. I'm sorry. Then I showed him one final picture. It was us, only 6 months earlier, standing in front of our house. He stared at it longer than the others. For a heartbeat, I believed something had returned. Instead, he frowned. Nice house. I couldn't breathe. You really don't remember? He slowly shook his head. No. Then his eyes drifted toward the window. Almost absent-mindedly, he whispered, Emma always wanted a blue front door. Our front door had been blue for 5 years. I never told him that. Because suddenly, I wasn't sure whether it was a coincidence or a memory. When visiting hours ended, I remained in the parking lot, gripping the strange silver key inside my coat pocket. I kept asking myself one question. If my husband had never been unfaithful, why was his damaged mind inventing details that matched our real life? And if he had been hiding another family, what exactly did this mysterious key unlock? The silver key stayed in my coat pocket all night. I must have taken it out a dozen times, turning it over beneath the kitchen light, searching for anything that could explain where it belonged. Nothing. No numbers, no logo, no tag, just a plain key. Daniel hated clutter. He labeled everything, from storage boxes in the garage to charging cables in the living room. Yet somehow this key had remained hidden in his bedside drawer for years, and I had never noticed it. That wasn't like him. Or maybe it wasn't like the version of him I thought I knew. The thought refused to leave me. By sunrise, I had convinced myself there had to be a simple explanation. Maybe it opened a safety deposit box. Maybe it belonged to an old office. Maybe it was from his father's workshop. There had to be a logical answer. Didn't there? I drove to the hospital with fresh clothes, coffee, and the photo albums Daniel no longer recognized. As I entered his room, I froze. He was smiling. It was the first genuine smile I'd seen since the accident. A nurse was adjusting his IV while Daniel laughed softly. "Morning," I said. His smile disappeared immediately. "Oh," his polite expression returned. "I'm sorry, have we met?" Each time he asked, it hurt exactly the same. Yes, I answered quietly. I'm Claire. He nodded with the awkward kindness of someone meeting a stranger at the bus stop. I'm Daniel. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, because it was unbearable. The neurologist arrived moments later, carrying a folder of brain scans. The swelling has gone down, he explained. Physically, he's recovering remarkably well. So why doesn't he remember me? I asked. He hesitated. Memory isn't stored like books on a shelf. What does that mean? It means trauma sometimes disconnects pathways without erasing the information itself. So it could come back? It could. Could, not would. Could. Daniel barely listened. Instead, he interrupted. Did anyone call Emma? The doctor glanced toward me. I think we should avoid encouraging false memories. Daniel frowned. They aren't false. They feel real, the doctor corrected gently. Daniel looked almost offended. I know my wife. The room became painfully quiet. The doctor changed the subject. But those 4 words echoed in my mind long after he left. I know my wife. Not me. Someone else. That afternoon, Megan insisted on helping me search for the mystery key. We started with Daniel's office downtown. His co-workers were shocked to see us. Everyone described Daniel the same way. Reliable, organized, quiet, almost boring. Exactly the man I'd married. His assistant Olivia unlocked his office. Nothing seemed unusual. Client files, family photos, awards. A framed picture from our 10th anniversary sat beside his computer. He looked genuinely happy. That photo should have reassured me. Instead, it confused me even more. How could someone fake happiness for over a decade? As Megan searched the filing cabinets, I noticed something odd. Daniel's desk calendar. Every appointment was carefully written, every meeting highlighted, except one recurring entry. Every second Thursday. Just 2 letters. E.M. No location, no explanation, nothing else. E.M., Megan repeated. Emma? I don't know. Could be. My stomach tightened. Olivia noticed us staring. Oh, those initials. I looked at her immediately. You know what they mean? She shrugged. I assumed it was some private meeting. Did he ever tell you? No. Did anyone ever come asking for him? She thought for a moment. There was one woman. My heartbeat quickened. What woman? Dark hair, around 40? What did she want? She never came inside. Olivia frowned, trying to remember. He always met her outside. When? Every few weeks. Megan and I exchanged a glance. Neither of us spoke. Because suddenly, every late meeting Daniel had ever worked felt different. Had I missed something obvious? Or was I desperately trying to make random pieces fit together? On the drive home, Megan finally broke the silence. Claire, what? I think you need to prepare yourself. For what? In case Emma is real. I slammed the brakes at a red light harder than necessary. No, you don't know that. I know my husband. The words left my mouth before I realized how hollow they sounded. Did I? When I arrived home, I spread everything from Daniel's office across the dining table. Receipts, old planners, business cards, nothing. Then I remembered his laptop. The password didn't work. Not our anniversary, not my birthday, not his birthday, nothing. Of course, face recognition, his phone. The hospital still had it locked away. I drove back immediately. The nurse handed it to me after verifying my identity. The screen unlocked using Daniel's fingerprint. For one hopeful second, I believed I'd finally find answers. Instead, almost everything had been erased. No recent messages, no call history older than a week, no personal notes. Even his email folders had been emptied. Who deletes everything? I frowned. Daniel wasn't private. He barely remembered to clear junk mail. This felt intentional. Very intentional. Just as I was about to give up, a notification appeared. It had been hidden beneath dozens of hospital alerts. A payment confirmation. Monthly rental. Storage unit 214. My hands went cold. Storage? Daniel had rented a storage unit? For 3 years? Why had he never mentioned it? The address was only 20 minutes away. I didn't even think. I grabbed the silver key and drove. The storage facility sat behind a chain-link fence on the edge of town. Rows and rows of identical metal doors stretched into the distance. The manager checked Daniel's driver's license copy on file. "You're his wife?" "Yes." "He doing okay?" "He survived." The old man smiled with relief. "Good." He handed me a visitor pass. Unit 214. As I walked between the narrow corridors, my footsteps echoed against the steel walls. The key felt heavier with every step. Unit 214. I stopped. The silver key slid into the lock perfectly. For a moment, I couldn't move. If I opened that door, my marriage might never look the same again. I turned the key. The lock clicked. The metal door rolled upward with a loud scrape. Inside, there were no boxes of old furniture, no forgotten tools, no business records. Instead, I found a room arranged almost like a tiny apartment. A couch, a bookshelf, a coffee maker, children's drawings pinned carefully to a corkboard. My chest tightened. There were framed photographs everywhere. Most had been turned face down, as if someone hadn't wanted visitors to see them. With trembling hands, I picked up the first frame. It wasn't Daniel, just 2 smiling children, a little boy, a little girl, about 7 years old, exactly the ages Daniel had described. Aiden, Lily. The names echoed inside my head. My pulse pounded so loudly I could barely hear myself breathe. I reached for another photograph. This time, my fingers froze before they touched the glass. Because standing beside those children, smiling exactly the way he smiled in our wedding pictures, was Daniel. His arm wrapped around a woman with dark hair. The 4 of them looked like a family, a real one. The date stamped in the corner made my knees buckle. The picture had been taken only 8 months ago. 8 months, not 18 years, not before we met. 8 months ago, while he was still coming home every evening, making Sunday pancakes, kissing me goodbye before work. He had posed for family photographs with another woman. Tears blurred my vision. I wanted to believe the picture was fake, photoshopped, anything. Then I noticed something even stranger. Behind the frame lay a folded envelope. Across the front, written in Daniel's unmistakable handwriting, were just 5 words. "Open only if I disappear." I stared at the envelope for several long seconds. My fingers hovered over it. If I opened that letter, there would be no going back. And deep inside, for the first time since the accident, I wasn't sure I wanted the truth. My hands trembled as I opened the envelope. The paper inside had been folded so many times that the edges were beginning to wear. At the top, in Daniel's unmistakable handwriting, were the words, "If you're reading this, something has gone terribly wrong." I swallowed hard. The letter continued. "Claire, if it's you, then I failed to tell you the truth myself. And if it's anyone else, I hope they understand why I kept this secret." My heart pounded. Everything you're about to discover will make me look like a liar. I deserve that. But I was never living 2 lives. I frowned. Then what was all this? The photographs, the children, Emma, the hidden room. The letter answered before I could finish the thought. 3 years ago, my best friend Michael died in a factory explosion. I remembered Michael. He and Daniel had been inseparable in college. I had attended his funeral. His wife had not. At least, I thought she hadn't. His wife, Emma, disappeared after the funeral because she blamed herself for forcing him to take that dangerous job. Everyone assumed she wanted to be alone. The truth was much worse. Daniel explained that Michael had left behind enormous debts. Loan sharks had begun threatening Emma and the children only weeks after his death. The police investigated. Nothing happened. The threats became more violent. Windows were smashed, their dog was poisoned. Someone left photographs of the twins outside their apartment. Emma became convinced her children would be killed. She asked Daniel for help, and he couldn't say no. I lowered the letter. Suddenly, every memory I had questioned began to look different. Every late meeting, every business trip, every unexplained expense. I kept reading. Emma refused charity. She only accepted one condition, that nobody knew where they were, not even you. Tears blurred the page. I rented this storage unit as a meeting place because they were terrified of being followed. We celebrated birthdays here, helped the twins with homework. It became the only place they felt safe. The room around me suddenly looked different. The children's drawings, the old couch, the board games stacked in the corner. It hadn't been another home. It had been a hiding place. I looked again at the family photograph. This time, I noticed something I had missed before. Daniel wasn't standing beside Emma the way a husband would. He was kneeling behind the children. His smile wasn't romantic. It was protective. The next paragraph hit even harder. I know how this looks. That's why I never took pictures with all of us until Lily begged me. She wanted one photo where we all smiled together because she said I was the closest thing she had to a dad. I closed my eyes. I remembered the little girl's stuffed fox. Daniel hadn't imagined her. He had tucked her into bed dozens of times. The letter continued. Claire, I should have told you years ago. I wanted to, every single day. But Emma believed that if anyone knew where they lived, the people chasing them would eventually find them. Keeping you in the dark was the greatest mistake I've ever made. The final page contained only one request. If I don't survive, tell Emma she doesn't have to hide anymore. Below it was an address, a real one, not the storage unit, a house, only 20 miles away. I drove there before I could change my mind. The house was small and weathered. Children's bicycles leaned against the porch. A blue chalk drawing covered the driveway. When I knocked, the door opened only a few inches. A woman with dark hair stared at me. Her face instantly lost all color. Claire? She knew my name. You know who I am. She nodded slowly. I've always known. You've been hiding. Yes. From me? No. She looked over her shoulder toward the living room. From people who wanted my children. I handed her Daniel's letter. She didn't even need to unfold it. She recognized the handwriting immediately. Tears rolled down her cheeks before she read the first line. I'm sorry, I whispered. So am I. Neither of us spoke for a long time. Finally, two children peeked around the hallway. The little girl clutched a stuffed fox, exactly as Daniel had described. The little boy stared at me cautiously. Is Uncle Daniel okay? My throat tightened. He survived. Both children burst into tears. Emma covered her mouth. For the first time since the accident, I understood why Daniel had fought so desperately to call her. He hadn't been trying to return to another life. He had been trying to protect people who depended on him. The following morning, I returned to the hospital. Daniel looked exhausted. I know you, he said quietly. Hope rushed through me. You do? I know you're important. It wasn't everything, but it was something. I sat beside him. I met Emma. His face changed instantly. They're safe? Yes. Relief flooded his eyes before confusion returned. I don't remember why I asked. I smiled through tears. That's okay. You aren't angry? I looked at the man I had almost condemned in my own heart. I was. I reached for his hand, but now I know the difference between keeping a secret and living a lie. Weeks passed. Daniel's memories returned slowly, not in order. A smell, a song, the sound of rain against the windshield. Then faces, places, finally, me. One afternoon, he looked at our wedding photograph on the hospital table, his eyes filled with tears. Claire. It was the first time he had spoken my name since the accident. I remember. I laughed and cried at the same time. He pulled me into the gentlest embrace. I'm so sorry. You came back. Not all at once. You still came back. Months later, Emma and the twins came to dinner. The first few minutes were awkward. Then Lily ran into the kitchen and asked if Daniel was making pancakes. He laughed. Only on Sundays. Claire smiled. So that's where that tradition came from. Daniel looked embarrassed. It started because Lily refused cereal. The room filled with laughter. For the first time, no one was hiding, no one was pretending. The truth had hurt every one of them, but it had also set them free. Sometimes the greatest betrayal is not what someone does. It's what we assume before we know the whole story. Daniel had hidden the truth. Claire had doubted the man she loved. Emma had carried her fear alone for years. Every one of them had made mistakes. None of them had been entirely innocent. None of them had been entirely guilty. The accident had stolen Daniel's memories, but in the end, it gave all of them something even more valuable: a chance to rebuild their lives on honesty instead of silence. If you had found the photographs before the letter, would you have believed Daniel was living a double life? Or would you have kept searching for the truth? Share your thoughts in the comments.